prosecuted and actually put behind the bars. Well, there are cases we started working with in 2005, which are still open. So, and that kind of timeline isn't really acceptable if we really want to make a change. So we are facing still big problems, and the problems, in my view, aren't really in the laws. Most countries have the laws, not all of them. Actually, there's a great example yesterday by Louis Coronas at the Panda Talk on Mariposa case, where running a botnet in Spain is legal. It's just running a botnet, that's not the problem. There has to be an actual crime committed with the botnet to actually get prosecutions in place. But overall, I think the laws aren't the problem. It's the lack of interaction and cooperation between international or local law enforcement internationally. That's the main challenge.
As far as I see, some countries are really tired of cybercrime, so that's why I think that some of the guys from big use case, which was started just a couple of weeks ago, were already imprisoned and fined. One for pretty big amounts of money, as far as I remember, and they were in prison for they will really go to jail for a couple of years, as far as I remember. So, and it was really fast. So they were arrested. A couple of weeks will pass and they already are in jail. So that's, I think, a really nice point that some countries are really tired of cybercrime, and some governments see that really cybercrime is a huge, big problem which must be solved in different types of ways, and that's why I think they started to make really fast and real sentences to cybercriminals.
There are still, Australia is a case in point of where in some cases for cybercriminality it really does, and I don't want to come across as a disciplinarian, so I'm not a great fan of imprisonment, and I have a moral objection to the death penalty, for example. Let me just put that on the record. But in Australia it seems for certain sorts of cybercrime, particularly relating to identity theft, where you basically ruin somebody else's life, that the penalties are really tiny. And I was at the Queensland police have been very proactive in kind of trying to engage the public online, but people who deal with, who may wander into cybercrime, trying to reach out to them and say, let's deal with the prevention side by persuading people of right behaviours, and let's report this stuff so we as investigators can actually do something about it. And the conference around identity crime conference around last year, we had a guy who had been convicted in prison, released, and was now on parole, present at the conference describing his, why he did his spree of identity crime on the Gold Coast in Queensland. Now, he was unable to attend the conference because the conditions of his parole precluded him leaving the state of New South Wales. So he couldn't come to the conference, but he freely admitted that one of the reasons he did it is that he knew he was going to get caught in the end because he wasn't particularly careful. He just felt like living the high life on somebody else's dime. And he kind of figured that he knew that the maximum penalty was going to get probably 2 years. I think he got 18 months. And he didn't feel like any disincentive to somebody without, the moral sensitivity not to do it. So we could have helped, for example, in prosecution in that case. Investigator didn't need to, and it would be, as Mick is really frustrating at the end when the magistrate or the judge at the end sort of treats the guy like a bit of a nerd because it's sort of cyber-oriented. So it seems, certainly in Australia, and I don't know what it's like in other parts of the world, one of my feelings is the people we really need to educate about dealing with cyber crimes are the magistrates and judges, and also need to create some situations in law. Another problem if you're an expert witness in anything involving malware is the amount of time that the defense can tie you up trying to explain to the jury, yes, this sector did belong to this file, and yes, I'm absolutely certain of that fact. And there are some sort of received wisdoms which in many countries which have a jury system, which the court is not allowed simply to accept. And that just makes it, so I think we have to fix as well the actual judicial part at the end in cases where we do have a possibility of sentencing somebody. So I'm not saying, we sort of bring back the whip and hanging her on the quarter, but it does seem that in many parts of the world there is very little disincentive.
One of the problems why we are seeing better international cooperation is the lack of resources with the law enforcement. And that's pretty obvious, because if you think about how resourcing is done for police forces for different types of crimes, like what kind of crimes do we want fight them? Well, we look at statistics. And then you look at companies around the world who get hurt by online crime. You look at different banks, you look at different companies getting hit by malware, you look at denial of service attacks. How often do companies actually report those crimes to police? Well, almost never. And then when you ask them, why don't you call the cops? You've been hit by a virus. Oh, what's the point? They can't do anything. Or, no, we don't want to tell them because we are afraid the information will leak. And if people know that our bank got robbed, they won't do any banking in our bank anymore. So we have huge underreporting for these crimes, globally. And of course, that means that these crimes don't exist because they aren't reported. And at the end of the year, officials are looking at the statistics, okay, what kind of crimes did we have, how many murders did we have, how many speeding problems with cars, where should we put budget next year to fight these crimes? And cybercrime, some are completely underreported because of these facts, and they get no funding because of that. So we have a vicious cycle going around.
I agree. And a flip side, this is again an Australian-specific anecdote, but I suspect it applies in many other developed economies, is that I have actually met people in Oz who wanted to report some sort of cybercrime against their business, and they sort of gave up when they couldn't actually find who to report to. You know, they go online and they go to some sort of federal centre for reporting crime, and they say, no, well, actually this is a crime under state law, so you need to report it to your police. So actually the best way to report a crime, the standard way, is you go to your local area command, your local police station. So they sort of went there, and the cop behind the counter said, listen, mate, better things to do than report a virus. And sorry, that was rather mocking, but you know, and they do, because as you say, they're tasked with stopping people speeding, stopping people getting beaten up and selling drugs illegally, etc. So there's also this problem of if you want to report crime, where do you do it? And what's ironic is in many countries there's now this web portal, you know, written in ASP.net or something, where you can enter all your details and report that you've been a victim of cybercrime. So I guess getting the information into the system in the first place is also something for many people quite a problem.
I'll bring it back to the topic. I think our president is built cloud housing.
The ultimate cloud?
Cloud housing.
But going on what was said, the fact that cybercrime happens all the way, malware or whatever, and with all the problems with law enforcement not understanding it or magistrates not understanding it, is there some sort of international structure which is needed, or can you work through the present structures, whether it's the ITU or Interpol or any of the present agencies and structures? Or would you need to have a combined body with both community, companies, as well as law enforcement working together?
You mean a committee to decide what committees we should have to
Something like that, yeah.
to manage the steering group? Mika made a great point, pertinent to his talk that I alluded to earlier about this mobile malware which dials unregulated premium rate numbers and cashes out immediately, is we couldn't work out who would be the international body that would attempt to bring regulation to an industry that already believes itself to be well regulated. So that's, you know, the problem with the single place of reporting is that there are so many to choose from.
Right.
I'll be honest with you guys, I'm actually just a technologist, right? So I dabble a bit in policies and stuff like that, but I'm mostly just a technologist, so that's what it comes down to. I don't disagree with any of this, but I've not really analyzed it well enough to sort of figure out what's the right thing to do.
I think one thing that the much maligned anti-malware industry can do, and this is not so much about prevention, it doesn't punish, but it is about disruption, is that the more sort of money-generating malware we can head off in a mechanism that costs cyber criminals human time and real money, in other words, the greater we can make their cost of entry into their market, which used to be effectively zero, then that can help to make a difference.
I'm not so sure that we really understand how to. So, you know, what's funny is cloud, right? Cloud is a great way to go stand up, right? Because you can use, Gmail, you can use, very no hybrids. You can use Gmail, you can use Skype, you can use all these, Amazon S3 storage, you can use all these things, and save yourself a huge IT budget. So, okay, well, we have lower startup costs as good guys. They have lower costs as bad guys. So where do you hit them trying to increase their cost burden? Well, I think technology is going to come up and enable them to go online and commit crime or do insurance activity we make it more expensive?
There are. It's a hard problem because there are different types of crimes, different mechanisms, so which means there are different choke points. Like one practical example, banking trojans, a credit card fraud involving money mules. Money mules themselves typically are the choke point, and it is something that can be made more difficult for the bad guys. They have a shortage of people moving the money for them, and they can be disrupted if you just take the time. For example, cite fictitious people as money mules and don't move the money for them, or work very hard in finding the money mules and shutting them down, and that will hurt them directly in their pocket.
Has anybody done that? Has anybody flooded the...
Yes.
So we all do those spams, you know, work at home, just try to cite
Well,
checks.
the misuse game is the case of misuse money mules. Many of the persons were money mules.
No, I know that. But does anybody like... years ago we had Blue Security, which was attempted to DDoS spammers by filling out the forms. People try to junk fill out phishing forms, etc. Has nobody done this to the money mule industry?
There are patents which do this.
Yeah.
Listen, if there are people, they...
For example, one way to undermine the kind of underground eBay is you could consider ruining somebody's reputation, say for selling card numbers, by flooding their phishing database with legitimate card numbers that are genuine card numbers, but none of which work. In other words, then they go, the guy comes along.
So passes for one check, passes for the check.
I bought 10,000. CVVs and numbers of this guy, and only 0.1% worked. The others were all, cancelled already. He's reselling old stuff. So, yes, there are disruptions. That
Or another, you can say exactly the word of the police. Get them beat up by the end of it.
Another example, unfortunately doesn't hurt the guys much, but something one should do if one can is if guys are producing, buying digital certificates, code signing certificates, so they can sign their antivirus 2045 or whatever, is that if we can